Hello, I'm Gwen from OSU Extension in Sandusky County. Today I'm going to share some tips for helping you get the most out of an online or partially online counselor training program. First, let's take a look at how online learning compares to more traditional face-to-face counselor training. Our camp counselor trainings are usually done in a face-to-face setting, and we use the group atmosphere for a lot of discussion-based learning. While your educator may use some lecture-style teaching, you'll most likely also see things like role play, scenario-based discussions, and even working in small groups first and then reporting back to the larger group with a presentation or a skit. Often team challenge activities and even games are part of the learning, and those offer great opportunities to practice the skills that you'll need to be successful at camp. With online learning, the formats vary based not only on your educator or camp director's style, but also on the technology available within your group. For example, live video conference calls using systems like Zoom, WebEx, or Skype allow for some of that same interaction and discussion-based learning that face-to-face meetings provide. However, not all of your fellow counselors, or maybe even your educator, may have access to the internet speeds or the equipment necessary for this to be successful. Pre-recorded video like this one allows an instructor to replicate lecture-style instruction, but it's strictly one-way communication. By nature, face-to-face meetings are held at a set time and place. Some online learning, such as conference or video calls, may be handled the same way. However, other online options, such as pre-recorded video or reading assignments, may allow for a little more flexibility and responsibility. You can work these items into your schedule around other activities, but ultimately, it's your responsibility to find that time and make sure they get done. No matter what the learning setting, you always have a responsibility to pay attention, to participate, to stay on task, and to resist distractions. But in an online learning setting, learners have an increased level of responsibility. You may not have someone there to remind you when your mind wanders or when you become distracted. No one but you will know if you truly participated fully and did all of the activities. It's up to you to apply the knowledge to real-life settings using the examples and descriptions given in the lesson, and to communicate with your instructor if you need help. The first step to becoming a productive online learner is really to find your classroom. Many of you may also be learning online for school and therefore may have already done this. But ideally, you should have a designated space away from the hustle and bustle of other activities so you're less likely to be distracted. Take a few minutes before each session to gather any supplies that you'll think you'll need, and especially remember to have something for taking notes. This area doesn't always have to be a desk. You may find that you learn best curled up on a favorite chair or even a beanbag in your room with maybe a small table nearby or a pad of paper and a pencil. The ideal learning space may look different for everyone. The important thing is to find a space you can carve out as yours and a space that works for you. So does this mean you always have to use only that space? Although it is best to use the same space most of the time, you might actually find that occasionally you need a little variety. Are you distracted by the beautiful weather outside your window? If it's a beautiful day and you have a picnic table or even a place to lay a blanket outdoors still in reach of your Wi-Fi connection, great. But don't forget to take a few minutes to think ahead about what else that you may need to set up that new space before you head out. My only caution here is that you know your needs as well as your weaknesses better than anyone else. You will need to decide if that sunshine is more of a distraction through the window or when you're out in it. Successful online learning requires that you participate fully. Take a moment to think about what I mean when I say to participate fully. What do you think that means? Does participating in an online training look different than participating in a face-to-face setting? So, did you just answer those questions in your mind or on paper? Or did you simply wait for me to continue? This is an example of the difference between participating fully in an experience and simply listening to a video and checking off the box that it's been done. When an instructor asks a question to provoke thought on something, it is your job to actually think about what they have asked. The way active learning works in an online setting will vary based on the format being used. On live web conferences or conference calls, you have the opportunity to participate in discussion. But if you're watching a video on your own or reading an article, you'll have to take the initiative to think about those things on your own. This may mean jotting down a few notes or simply answering some questions in your mind. Avoiding distractions will be one of the hardest challenges about self-directed learning. It's easy to begin a lesson with the best intentions, but then get distracted by a phone notification, someone else in the room, or even something flying by the window. It will take some effort for you to avoid those distractions, and honestly, you may not always be successful. You'll learn over time what works for you. If you find yourself being particularly distractible one day, you may find that you need to take a break or change locations. I would suggest that you start by turning off your phone. Believe it or not, they really do have power buttons. Most of them also have a do not disturb setting that you can use when you need to concentrate on other things. There is a reason that schools generally don't allow students to have phones out in class. It's because they're a distraction. Most learning modules will take no more than 30 or 45 minutes. Many are broken into even shorter segments, so it's not too long to avoid communicating with your friends. It can also be tempting to open other windows on your computer, or even on another computer or a tablet while learning, trying to multitask by doing other assignments, browsing the web, or doing other tasks. Please resist that temptation. It is your responsibility as the learner to stay on task and pay complete attention to the lesson. As we mentioned before, one of your responsibilities is to make sure you continue to communicate with your educator. They are still there and they want you to be successful. If you don't tell them any differently, they're going to assume that you understand what was presented. If you're having issues with internet connectivity or other technology, be sure to let them know that you're struggling. They may or may not be able to fix those issues for you, but maybe they can find an alternative way to get you the same information. Lastly, I would just like to remind you that like most things in life, the more effort you put into your online training activities, the more value you'll get from them. We do not train counselors simply to check off a box on our to-do list. We do have minimum numbers of training hours required, as well as topics that we need to cover for each counselor. But none of the training that we provide is simply to meet that requirement. All of the training that's offered to you by your educator or camp director, both face-to-face and online, is suggested or assigned because they believe that the knowledge gained will be valuable to you as a camp counselor. Have you ever bounced a ball off of a hard surface? Picture dribbling a basketball or bouncing a tennis ball back up into the air off of the ground. I'm sure you've noticed that the more effort you put into that ball, the more bounce you get back out of it. Treat your online learning the same way and put the effort in so it's more than just checking off a box and it's something you can truly learn from. Thank you for joining me today to learn a little more about learning online, and thank you for the time that you put into your 4-H camping program. I wish you the best of luck with your online learning process as well as your camp year.